totally do that. All right, moving on. I went way too long on that story. I don't know. I just loved it. We'll come back to Blue Beetle. Get out of here with these ads. Oh my God. All right. So speaking of sequels, we're getting another Creed movie. Creed 4, says producer Irwin Winkler. I don't know, man. I don't know. Michael B. Jordan to direct, says the producer. Man, it's funny. We were talking about this last week. I don't remember what show it was. We're talking about Creed 3, and it was on the podcast. It was the podcast. Make sure you go check that out. Creed 3 to me got, as a little recap here, Creed 3 got an extra pass because I like Michael B. Jordan. I feel like Michael B. Jordan is one of us. He's a nerd. He's a blurred. It was very evident in the directing style of the movie, more specifically the final fight scene of the movie. I thought the creativeness in that final fight scene was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I don't want to spoil any of it in case you guys decide to watch it and you haven't, but he took anime and was like, how do I make anime real life? Incorporated that into the fight scene. And he also said, how do I make a boxing fight scene just different than every other boxing hand-to-hand combat fight scene? He did that. And I didn't think the story was very original. I didn't think the story was very good. You saw what was going to happen a mile away. You know, Creed is a young guy. And from movie 1 to movie 3, we just rehashed Rocky, where from Rocky 1 to Rocky 3, he retires and then has to come back. So in Michael B. Jordan doing that again, I was like, you know what? Just call it a day at this point. Just call it a day. At the end of the movie, we do the whole Marvel BS where his daughter's interested in fighting, so obviously he's going to train his daughter at some point. I don't need to see it. That reminded me, though, I was like, man, I feel like somebody else has talked about this whole Rocky franchise being run into the dirt. Good to see you, Steve. I was talking about you earlier today. And that was Sylvester Stallone. Sorry. By the way, Reservation Dogs advertisement, Taika Waititi. There you go. Good show. Good show. Speaking of running stuff into the dirt, enter stage left, Sylvester Stallone. This article, July 31st, 2022. Sylvester Stallone says Irwin Winkler and family are sucking Rocky dry. Depicts producer as blood-sucking vampire. Now, much to everyone's surprise, unless you do, follow that kind of thing, Sylvester Stallone doesn't outright own Rocky. He pretty much sold off the ownership of Rocky to still be Rocky. And in Rocky 1, when that movie, before it came out, Stallone was trying to sell that script. And when he eventually got somebody to buy it, he was like, listen, I'm only going to sign over this if I'm playing Rocky. And people were like, no, you can't act. We're not doing this. You don't have the face. He's like, no, I'm Rocky. This is my script. I'm selling it. So that's how something like this article comes out. He's the face of Rocky. If you say Rocky, people say Sylvester Stallone, but he doesn't really own it. Similar to, you say James Bond, depending on who you're talking to, they're like, oh yeah, James Bond's Sean Connery. Oh yeah, James Bond is Roger Moore. They don't own the franchise. They're just the face of the franchise. So the last Creed movie, Stallone's not in it because he was like, I'm out. I'm done. I think this is done. And they were like, no, gonna continue to push this forward. Seeing that Creed 4 is coming out, I'm like, listen, it's done, but they're gonna keep on pushing forward. That's just the name of the game. But I do think it's ironic. I do think it's ironic overall that Stallone is the one to say that they're bleeding this dry. You know, essentially they're beating a dead horse here. They're just dragging that horse across that finish line. Because my man made Expendables 4 this year. And I don't think anybody saw it. In fact, I'm willing to bet most of you didn't know there was Expendables 3 or 4. Maybe you knew there was a part 2. And in your brain, maybe 2 and 3 are the same movie. But no, there's an Expendables 4. So, at the end of the day, we talked about it in the podcast last week. I think the franchise movies, like one of the stories of this year is as the cat takes a shit behind me in the litter box. I think one of the stories of this year is the legacy franchise is dying. In fact, it's probably already dead. And they just haven't released the news yet, but like the families know they're dead. I think it's over. It's an absolute wrap. And Expendables proves it. I just saw somebody actually talk about it. Where was it? Equalizer. That was another one. What was the other movie we mentioned this? Oh, we talked about Equalizer. We didn't talk about Expendables, but we should have. Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible. The fact that all of those movies did not do well with big actors right in the front. Harrison Ford, Tom Cruise. It's time for some new blood out there. It is time for some new blood. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip some of the comments, reading all of them. But it feels like we're all on the same page here. He wrote the Rocky movies, but he had a problem with some of the copyright stuff because he based on a boxer. Yeah. JB, Expendables franchise over Creed any day. There you go. There you go. Now, yeah. Now, talking about new blood,